Hey everyone, it's Helen here. Just sitting here waiting on boys in the middle school. So I thought it would be the perfect time to make a video. I was sitting here thinking of the million of topics that I could talk about right now. And acid reflux came to my mind. So I'm kind of a professional with acid reflux. So it's a topic I know quite a bit about because I've lived with it for many, many, many years. It's actually something that kind of goes down the line for me as well. It can be hereditary. So my dad's mom had it and had a major surgery because of it. And then my dad had it, had a major surgery because of it. I have it, had a major surgery because of it, and unfortunately now my son has it. So he's so young, and I believe it was like a year and a half ago he already had to have an upper GI. So it is definitely one of those things. And so reflux, I know sometimes people think acid reflux kind of like just like that little bit of heartburn you get, if you've eaten too much salsa or overindulged in, too many bowls of chili at the cook-off. However, for me, it became extremely debilitating. So we'll go back about 15 years ago. During my, about 15 years ago, I was going to say, during my pregnancy with my son is when I started to kind of deal with like reflux, maybe a couple years before that, even a tiny bit here and there. So I would even just call it just a little bit of heartburn. So I was able to manage it just by, maybe not eating quite as much spicy stuff or, taking a Tums or two from the grocery store. And then they had those little tablets, which was really safe to take while I was pregnant. This is actually something my doctor recommended. I mean, you might want to talk to your doctor because everybody's different, but during my pregnancy, because I started to really sort of deal with it, it was Pepcid AC. So I know that that's kind of a common thing for women is to deal with heartburn during their pregnancy. So Pepcid AC was something I was able to take that they said was relatively safe. So it's just over-the-counter medicine, and I did really well with it. So I was able to maintain my reflux for a few years just doing the Pepcid AC, but it did start to get worse probably in around like 2010, 2011. I started to struggle more severely with it, and to the point where it would I would wake up with these chronic sore throats, and it would get into my chest. If I slept flat, which I mean most people do, I would wake up with these raspy coughs and everything. I would get heartburn from drinking water. I'd get heartburn from brushing my teeth. So it was just everything and anything at this point. It was no longer just spicy foods that was giving me heartburn. It was literally everything. So I had to eat the most bland of bland diets. I mean, I'm talking just like plain turkey, just a little mayo, salt, no pepper, no onions, no garlic, no anything. I could eat like some bread stuff, noodle things, chicken as long as it wasn't super seasoned or anything, tortilla chips. But I had to get away from anything and everything I knew, like no more chili, no more pop, no more spaghetti, no more obviously like fruit, acidic fruit. So I mean, I had to do a 360 just in order to feel good, like even a little bit. So it was really, really extreme. So I meet with a gastroenterologist. So that's a specialist with acid reflux. So they have a lot of these places all through the U.S. So, it's no longer going to your local doctor. It's seeing a specialist just in this particular area. And I tell him everything that's going on. And what he tells me that we're going to do is an upper GI. So an upper GI is where they go down with like a little camera and they go down your throat and then they go through your esophagus and they kind of peek around. They see like what's going on, is there inflammation? Do we see polyps? Do we see, ulcerations? What do we see? So they'll go down and they'll just kind of take a peek, is it raw in there? Is there cancer cells in there? So they're really looking for everything when they go in with an upper GI. And for me, obviously, they don't do it that day. They'll have to schedule you for that particular procedure, usually. I mean, that's at least been my experience. And I've had several of them, guys. So I've had it probably like 6 or 7 upper GIs at this point. And it's really relatively easy. Like, I've been asleep through all of mine. They just give you like a little bit of medicine. They put you out while they do it. And then, within a matter of minutes after they're done doing the procedure, really, they wake you up. So I'm not actually sure what type of anesthesia it is. It's kind of like just like a Twilight type, I don't know really the difference between them. However, I just know that you're not out long, and then when you come to, it's like literally 15, 20 minutes later. So it's relatively quick, and for me, it was relatively safe. I mean, anytime you do any type of a medical procedure like that, like a surgical procedure, you are putting yourself at risk, but you'll just have to read your documentation and, find a trusted, doctor and then go from there. So what they did was is they decided they wanted to kind of look in there. And so when they did, they just, I didn't have a ton of damage. They found like a little of this, a little of that. They decided that they wanted to put me on a PPI. So that's more of a professional strength. It's a proton inhibitor is what it is. So that's what that means, and whatever that means. But it's for people who have a little bit more severe reflux. So they put me on 40 milligrams of that. And I had to try a couple different kinds to come to the point where I really found that the Nexium was a good fit for me. Now, a lot of these medications do have like long-term effects, and I mean, that does not sit lightly with me, and I've been on it now for several years. I've actually been on my PPI since 2012, and if you buy some of these at the store now, which you can buy over the counter, like the 20 milligram ones, not the 40 milligrams or the 60 milligram ones or whatever, but 20 milligrams, I mean, it tells you right then and there that you probably should not use for more than 14 days without your doctor, telling you what to do. And so I've been on it many, many, many years now. But for me, I'm in a rock and a hard place because it's just like I don't want to be on it. However, I also don't want to get esophageal cancer. And so I got to weigh it out a little bit. I definitely just, need to pray about it, see where God wants me with it. But, with it being hereditary, with my history, with having to have a major surgery for my acid reflux, that is like the best thing for me is probably to be on it. But I can tell you that right now, instead of the 40 milligrams that I was on for several years, I am now doing 20 milligrams. So that's, I think, huge. I mean, at least for me. And at some point in time in my life, I'm praying that God will take me off it altogether, that I won't have to take it anymore. So that would be my hope and my dream and my prayers. But for right now, I'm doing 20 milligrams. So anyways, I get the upper GI, and he puts me on a low dose, I guess 40 milligrams. I don't know how low that is. That's not super low, but of the Nexium. And so I end up taking that and starting on that. That wasn't enough for me, unfortunately. I was hoping that it would be like this magical pill that I'd be able to take it and start eating like whatever I wanted again, and that was never the case. And so this was actually just the beginning of my journey. So from this point, I just, I still wasn't getting the relief I was looking for. And I would talk to people, and I was so discouraged because they were like, oh, I can eat whatever now. Just take my pill and I'm good. And that was not the case for me. And so I just started like reaching out more. Like I ended up going back to the specialist, a couple months later, because it takes a long time to get in. And I'm like, this doesn't seem to be working. And then, like I said, it was kind of like, well, maybe try this one for a week or try this for a week. And medication just was not enough. And so I was just like, no, there's just something that's not right. So I ended up making an appointment for a surgical office here in town with a completely different doctor, because I just was like at this point thinking like maybe I need to get a second opinion. I don't know where to go. And so this particular surgeon was like, hey, let's try this gastric emptying study test on you. Okay, so if you're not familiar with that, it's a really easy breezy test. However, what it does is it tests like how fast like food empties from your stomach, and it also tests how like fast liquid empties. So that's what it is. It's basically, that's all it is. And so they wanted to do this test for me, and what you have to do is the day of. You don't get put out for this particular procedure, and I've had this done 3 times as well in different places. I had it done here locally in Wyoming, and I've had it done in Colorado a couple times as well. What they do though is that they have you, this particular one here where I was from, they can either do a 2-hour study, a 4-hour study. It really depends whatever your doctor orders for you. This one was 2 hours for me, and what it was is you show up at the hospital, they have you eat like some bread or like some eggs and like some bread with some jelly, and then like, you have to eat it in a short amount of time, and they put like some solution on it so that they can take the camera and they can actually see like how fast the food is emptying from your stomach. So they monitor it that way. So it's kind of like an x-ray machine is able to kind of monitor like, okay, what's the stomach doing at this time? So I think it's like some radioactive type stuff. You don't taste it when you eat it. So I mean, it's fine. I mean, it's bland. It's nothing crazy, but you just have to drink this like little drink really fast, eat this food really fast. And then this particular one, I laid there. So you didn't do anything. You just laid there while they took pictures. Ding, 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 ding. Now, I don't know how realistic that one is, because I mean, how many times do you really eat a meal and then you just go lay down for 2 hours? I mean, I guess we all have, but to me, it was kind of like, okay, I don't know. It came back that my gastric emptying wasn't good though. And so it showed that it was slow moving for food and for liquid. And so when I ended up meeting back with my surgeon here locally, they told me that I had this thing like gastroparesis, which I was like, gastroparesis? And what that means is the food was sitting in my stomach longer than it needed to, and it wasn't digesting in the way that it needed to. And so it was just sitting there. And so they felt like that might be like the culprit a little bit, at least, to why I was dealing with some of that reflux. Because if you have food that's just sitting there and it's not digesting, it's not going anywhere, and it's just pushing up and it's just sitting there, obviously you're going to be somebody who's going to have like a little bit more reflux. And so I was like, okay, well, what do we do? Are we going to do surgery? I need to do something, to like have my life back, because at this point I was losing a ton of weight. I was getting really skinny, and I wasn't, like I said, feeling good. I didn't want to be on medications for gastroparesis. I was like not having it because I don't want to be on a bunch of medications. I was like, no, we've got to do something. I was ready, even though I was young, to do a surgical option. My father had it done, grandma had it done. I was like, we got to do something. But this particular surgeon was like, nope, that would just cause more problems. We can't. You'll never be able to have like this, the knee fundoplication surgery or any other surgery. It would just cause more problems with the gastroparesis. So, I mean, you're basically going to have to live with it and, go to a dietitian and learn what you can eat and what you can't eat and just go from there. And, so I did meet with the dietitian, and they gave me like these pages worth, and I met with him 4 or 5 times up at the hospital. And even that, I was just like, oh, what worked for, some did not work for me, and vice versa. And I was just like, this is just so frustrating. And then finally we decided to go down to Denver and meet with a specialist down there, which was a godsend. So I meet with another doctor down there, and she goes in and does an upper GI, so I have to have another procedure. So we're talking so much money here, guys, over a matter of years. I've had so many tests and procedures have been put out, and just trying to get answers. And so here we are in Denver, and she puts me out, and she's just like, okay, this is what I see. I would be willing to recommend you to a surgeon so that we could have that surgery. And it was literally, I felt like one of the greatest days, because it really just restored my hope. I was just like, oh my gosh, maybe, just maybe I'm going to get a quality of life back, maybe. And so eventually, again, I end up coming back to Colorado. I have to meet with the surgeon who would perform the knee fundoplication surgery for me. And he was like just dumbfounded. He was just like, why have you not had this surgery sooner? I'm confused. And he looks at all my charts and all my everything, like literally a binder full of all the procedures I had had, everything I had been going through. And he was just like, we could have done something so less invasive had you gotten here sooner. And that to me was so frustrating, because I'm like, I was going for 4 years of trying to get this under control and trying to have all these procedures and trying to get answers and so there were other procedures I could have had before even having the knee fundoplication, which is very invasive, but he just couldn't understand it. So guys, this was a lesson, like, get a second opinion, get a third opinion. And we know our bodies, we know what's going on with ourselves. Everybody's different. And if you're not getting the answers that you need or the direction that you need to go, like for whatever you're dealing with, it's just like, you may have to travel, because that's what I ended up having to do. And then here I was, like, he just couldn't believe it. Like, and it was so extreme. He was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. Like, let's do the surgery here, like next week, let's get this done. So I trusted him. He was very knowledgeable. He's a wonderful surgeon, highly sought after. And I was just like, okay. So, and then they ended up doing the gastric emptying study down there again too, because he was just like, okay, we need to see where this is at for you, just so we know what we're dealing with, because we may need to do another procedure for that along with this knee fundoplication if it's severe. And so we ended up doing the gastric emptying study down there, which was amazing, by the way. So again, I didn't lay down this time. They did a 4-hour study, same procedure. You eat the eggs, you drink the fluid, you do all that, but just every hour you go in, they take a picture of the stomach and see how it's emptying, and then you can walk around and do whatever. You don't have to lay down, you don't have to do anything. To me, that just seemed a lot more realistic. So I mean, if you get a choice, opt for the 4-hour one like that, because it was easy breezy. You can't eat or drink anything, which is okay, but I mean, I got to walk around, I got to keep myself busy, I didn't have to just lay there awkwardly, and so that was good. So that result came back though, like the day before I'm supposed to have this major surgery, and he was just like, hey, it's really not good. He goes, so we may have to do this other surgery along with it. But but I wasn't mentally prepared for that. I had already mentally only prepared myself for the one, and I was like, I can't, not now. I don't, I was like, no, I just want to do the one, and I'll do the other later. I was just like, it was just like the day of, like I just wasn't prepared for that. And and also keep in mind when you're researching these type of things, any type of procedure you may have to have, whether it's a knee stem fundoplication or a full-on hysterectomy, be careful what you're reading, because that can be really, really scary stuff. Because I'm telling you, the reviews on the knee stem fundoplication surgery are petrifying. So you get on there and you start reading people's testimonies and stuff. I was just like, oh my gosh, they're like, this is like the worst surgery and this and that and all the things that could go wrong and everything going into it. So this was not one of those surgeries that you wanted to Google. However, I did, because I wanted to be informed. But I could have easily pulled out, just chickened myself out, but I just couldn't, because I had, like I said, lost so much quality of life, and I had been so unbelievably sick. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to take my chances. And I am so glad I did. So the day of surgery, you go in, and he gave me a little cocktail, to just try to help with nausea and stuff and everything prior to even going under. And so I did go under. It was a very, very long surgery for me, and it even took me a little bit longer to come out of recovery and stuff. So apparently they had to give me some Narcan to even get me out of surgery. So I'm not going to make this light. It was pretty severe. And then coming out of it, it was hard. It was a tough surgery, because what they do is during the knee stem fundoplication is they take your stomach and they cut it, and then you have your esophagus, and they wrap the stomach around your esophagus really tight. And I guess they used mesh for me. They used to use staples, and they do different things. I don't know. I didn't even know I had mesh until I had another doctor have to go back in there, a couple years ago, and tell me like, oh, your surgeon used mesh. I'm like, what? So anyhow, you just trust, right? But he went in, and then they have to tie it around the esophagus. And then in that case, they just hope that the acid will not keep flushing up onto the esophagus, okay? And so it's pretty major, but you are on a limited diet after this particular surgery for weeks. Weeks and weeks and weeks. And it starts off with something so simple like a popsicle. You can have like a little tiny bit of liquid for a week, and then you can ease into like the most soft food that you can imagine, and then you can little by little you can have like a noodle, and you can have some tuna, and then you can have like a little fish, and then eventually the very last thing you could have is like chicken or like hamburger or whatever, because what happens is they don't want you to choke, and your esophagus is now moving differently. Now that you've had this, everything is moving slowly and difficulty. Now you've got this tight wrap down there, and the last thing that you ever want to do is go off of that plan that they give you, because they've had to life flight people in there because the food gets stuck and they're going to die literally. And so he put the fear of that in for me, like right away. He was just like, you eat something that's too big of a bite, or you go off of this plan, and they'll have to life flight you from Casper into Colorado, and you do not want that. And I believed him. I took him very serious. So I took the diet plan very serious. Again, I was already so thin. I lost so much weight. I got into the 90s, you guys. It was awful. It was horrific, and God was with me every step of the way. But those were the days where I was just like, am I gonna make it? Am I gonna wake up? I was dehydrated. I actually ended up back in the hospital after having that surgery, because I wasn't doing well at all. And I just remember just praying to him, and I had the pastor came over, and he anointed me with oil, and I thought like, wow, this is it, I might be leaving this earth. It was the craziest time ever. And I just remember the day, because I wasn't even able to stomach water, like something so simple like was kind of like bubbling up. I just wasn't doing well. And so I got to the hospital. I stayed there like, I don't know, several days. They were able to get me back like to feeling good and getting the fluids in me so that I could go home. But I remember getting home and just being so grateful to be able to sip on a Boost. I remember the first day that I was able to drink a Boost just to get some vitamins and nutrients in me. And that was like a day where I was like, thank you so much, Jesus, because I was like, I got vitamins, and I was able to drink the whole thing. It took me hours, and now it takes me a minute. It's gone. But it was just like, that was hope for me. I was like, I got a Boost down. I got some vitamins in me. And little by little, so be it, God started to heal this amazing body like he always does. He wasn't done with me yet, not even close. In fact, he was just beginning. So this surgery was in 2015. Here we are in 2020, going on 2021. It took me probably about a year to heal from that surgery, but I can tell you it's been amazing, you guys. You wouldn't even know how good I'm doing now. So I'm still on the 20 milligrams of Nexium. I never got off that just because I had the surgery. I'm still taking that, as I told you. However, now I'm back to being able to, I can't go crazy. I can't. I won't even lie. I probably never will be able to go crazy. Still have to eat small bites. I still have to eat small portions. I still have to do all that. Nothing like, obviously, like post-surgery. However, I can have garlic in moderation. I can have pepper, a little bit of pepper on my chicken. I can have steak. I can have lots of different things. I still haven't been able to go back to tomato-based foods, or I still don't do a lot of acidic fruits and stuff, but I can do cucumbers and bananas, and like I said, I can do pizza with white sauce. I've gotten really creative with my diet and stuff, so you just have to kind of play with it and see what works for you, because everybody's different. But just the fact that, it's just like I don't wake up every day with sore throats. And I did buy a posturepedic bed that kind of reclines upwards, so if you suffer from reflux, that was probably one of the best purchases I've ever made, and I made that one early on, so you can just sleep upright a little bit, just so that will help with acid reflux, because a lot of the times they tell you to put blocks under your pillow or things like that. That doesn't work. It won't work, or pile the pillows up and then you end up with neck and back issues. So posturepedic bed, the best thing I did. So I do still sleep a little upright, but if I happen to sleep backwards, I don't wake up with bronchitis in my lungs from reflux, and so I'm doing so good. I'm obviously much heavier. I'm 115 pounds, so I've gained back a lot of the weight, and like I said, I'm not fearful of eating certain things anymore. I just have to watch myself, and I know my limits, and God has just healed me, and He's restored me so much in this way. So anyways, if you're suffering from reflux, real reflux, I highly recommend finding a good gastroenterologist. Try the medication, see if it works for you. Get the upper GI, maybe get the colonoscopy. I've had that too. I'll do a video on that, and we can just talk about that a little bit. With this particular surgery that they did end up doing for me, the Nissen fundoplication, they had to do an esophageal manometry, where they go up your nose with a tube while you're awake, and it's not fun, and they thread it through the back of your throat, and then they make you drink a liquid. And they have to make sure that the motility of your esophagus works good, because it's not going to be a surgery for everyone. So if you have great motility still in there and whatever, it could be a surgical procedure you could maybe have. But with that, and it just has little monitoring beads on it, so when you're swallowing, it just kind of watches how the esophagus works and how it goes and everything during that procedure. And I know they do that for other things in the hospital, but I would be happy if I never had to have that procedure done again. Anyways, but your doctor may recommend that you get that as well. And then there's also a Bravo study where they'll go in and they'll put you out, and then they'll place a little chip in your esophagus in that area, and they'll have you eat for 24 hours or 48 hours, kind of whatever you would, and then they see what the reflux does, see what it does to your body and stuff. So that's another way, another test they may want to do prior to doing a surgical intervention and stuff. So there's a lot to it, but if you're miserable, you're in pain, you're not, you're dealing just like I was dealing, it will be worth it to you. So I just, say a prayer and get informed, do a little research or a lot of research, whatever works for you, contact your doctor, and then just go from there. But I just, there is hope, and I'm living, again, proof of that, because I've had the surgery, I've survived the surgery, and now today, several years later, I'm doing really good. And I don't know how long it lasts. Some say 10 years, some say 20 years, so I may end up having to have another one at some point. However, today I am doing really good with my reflux, and I'm so grateful. Thank you, God, our great healer, our great restorer. And before I stop with this video, it's just like the Bible says, by Jesus' stripes we've been healed and we've been made whole. So sickness and disease does not belong in our bodies, and I know that He's our great healer, and He wants to heal us. He wants to give us the answers that we need, get us into the right doctors, the right procedures, whatever it is. So He's a great healer, and God also, He hears our prayers, and He sees our tears, and He heals us. And so those are the promises of God. And so don't give up faith, don't give up hope. There's lots of different procedures out there, and if you have any questions for me, I would absolutely love to answer them for you. So God bless, and have a wonderful day. Bye.